In today's workplace series, we're talking about the concept of overqualified. You've got the skills, you've got the capability for the job. You nail the interview, and then the rejection letter comes in, or rejection phone call. And it turns out you're rejected, not because you weren't good enough for the role, but because you were too good for the role. You were overqualified. Now, you might have heard this before. Perhaps you've experienced it or know someone who's experienced it. And hiring managers can worry about hiring people who are more qualified for a number of reasons. Now, the typical reason that's given is they worry that the person who's got these high skills, that they're going to get bored, that the role is really just a holding pattern until something else comes along. But there's a counter-argument to all of this. And there's been research that's been done recently which shows that there are 4 ways in which an overqualification can actually enhance the performance of the overqualified employee and their team members. And it comes down to things around human capital, status, social learning, and identification advantages. And the researchers looked at 10 studies that demonstrated how overqualification can enhance performance. They also found another 36 studies that showed that there's no relationship between overqualification and performance. What they found was that the varying outcomes from that research are that it's a reminder that the results from hiring someone who is perceived as overqualified depends on many factors, not least the attitude of the person who's doing the hiring. For some leaders, the biggest reason for not wanting to hire someone overqualified is less about the person who's overqualified and more about their own needs and their concerns. There can be the unstated fear of perhaps being overshadowed or outshone by that employee who has more knowledge, more capability, more experience. It's the unacknowledged fear that perhaps they might not be up to the task of managing someone who has such a high level of experience. For leaders lacking in self-confidence, hiring someone more qualified, they worry that it could threaten and weaken their position, their power, their authority. So what you want to do if you're on the role of the hiring manager is you need to really challenge your perspectives. Because once again, there's research that shows that having an overqualified person can really add to the dynamics of the team. But we also need to understand that when the employee who is overqualified comes into a role for which they're overqualified, it can also be a source of unhappiness. However, that's not a reason not to hire someone in the first place. If someone has decided that they want the role and that they've applied for it, isn't that enough? Isn't the goal to hire the most suitable person for the role? If I go back through my career, in an early part of my career, I applied for a job that was a graduate level role. Now, I wasn't at graduate level. I was at a further stage in my career. So technically, it wouldn't have been a role that perhaps I should have been applying for, but I was really keen to get into that industry. And so I was happy to take that lower position to get a foot in the door. The hiring manager at the time didn't see my overqualification as a negative. Instead, he saw it as a positive and took a very adaptive approach. And what he did was redesign aspects of the role, change the grading of the role to accommodate my skills and experience. Now, if I hadn't applied for that graduate role, I would have missed out on a fantastic opportunity. And an opportunity that then became a stepping stone to further progression within that industry. So holding on to this notion of overqualification hinders at many levels. As the candidate, having this notion can impede your career growth. It can result in you walking away from potentially really excellent opportunities. As the hiring manager, it can also hinder your ability to find the talent that you seek. So what you want to do is look at the benefits, because the benefits can flow both ways. For the hiring manager, you're going to get a highly skilled and capable team member who can bring new ideas, new perspectives to the role. And that also means they've got potentially the ability to support additional tasks, activities, projects. For the team member, While your team member already has knowledge and skills, there's an opportunity for them to continue to grow their skills and rapidly contribute to the dynamics of the organization, the dynamics of the team, and to show quick progress. So, my challenge to you is to really think about how do you take an adaptive approach with all of this? Because success when hiring someone overqualified requires that adaptive approach. When reviewing the candidate's application, if someone on the surface appears overqualified, you want to really actually understand, why do they want the role? Is it that they want to slow down, take on different responsibilities? Or in the example that I gave earlier about me, is it because they want to get into an industry that is different to one that they've been in the past? What are the potential opportunities to expand the scope of their role, to better utilize those talents, those skills? There might be options to shift, to reshape the role. And then really as the leader, challenge your mindset. Are there any unstated fears which could be blocking you, holding you back? And are those fears more about you than anything to do with the other person? In the position of the candidate, if you are looking at a role that you are, on the surface, potentially overqualified for, firstly, be explicit about why you want the role. Also, don't be too arrogant. Don't assume that you are actually overqualified for the role. Perhaps you're not. So you really want to highlight your skills, your experience, and why this role aligns with your current purpose and your career aspirations. And be really ready to address any concerns that the hiring manager might have. Directly explain why this role matters to you, why it's important. In closing, I'm going to share a quote from Simon Sinek, an author who many of you will have read or seen his very well-known TED Talk. Remember, and I'm quoting this, remember, it's not about finding someone who can do the job as well as you can. It's about finding someone who can do the job better than you can. When you hire people who are more qualified than you, you're not just building a better team, you're building a better you. Lots to think about. Take care. I'll see you next week.